Welcome to this month's Third Thursday webinar, brought to you by Synergy Settlement Services. The Third Thursday webinar is part of an ongoing free monthly webinar series. Each presentation is done by a Synergy subject matter expert who will tackle difficult issues that arise at settlement. During today's presentation, if you have questions, type them into the control panel where it says Questions. The following brief presentation will give you an overview of what Synergy does in 30 seconds.
A trial lawyer's job isn't to know all the nuances, to know what it takes to keep Medicaid in place or SSI and preserve Medicare and comply with the Medicare Secondary Payer Act and resolve these complicated liens that may be present. So all of those issues are issues that the trial lawyer really doesn't have the time or the expertise to deal with. They need a partner that they can rely upon that can handle all of those issues, and that's exactly what Synergy is.
Hi, welcome to the Synergy Third Thursday webinar. Today we're going to talk about leveraging structured settlements during the settlement process. As you know, Synergy Settlement Services is a full-service settlement planning firm. We handle consulting on all aspects of the case. Typically, we are trying to allow you to focus on what you do best, which is getting the best result for your client, while we handle the underlying issues that typically arise. We do full lien resolution services from Medicaid, Medicare to private, ERISA, hospital liens. We also handle Medicare set-aside allocations and other Medicare Secondary Payer Act compliance things that pop up during the case. And on the planning side, we do have a full line of pooled trusts that allow for settlement preservation, Medicare set-aside trustee management, public benefit preservation trust under the special needs umbrella, structured settlements, and we do work with attorneys to help them defer their fees into other calendar years, which hopefully will get them into lower tax brackets and ultimately save them some dollars on their tax bill. So a structured settlement has got a ton of traditional benefits, and the first thing I kind of wanted to do is just go through those common benefits that everybody talks about at the time of a settlement, and they're commonly known, and I'll walk through those just to make sure that everybody understands the most basic benefits of a traditional structured settlement. I think the most important thing to understand is that this is a product that has been around for a long time. It's not something new. It's not something that changes. A structured settlement is essentially taking a lump sum and changing it into periodic payments. And those periodic payments, just like the original settlement, are tax-free. So there is no determination of principal and interest when you look at what a payment that is received is. A client does not receive a 1099, a W-2, or any other tax form from the insurance company. Essentially, all they receive is their payments, and those are seen as a continuation of the settlement. So there is no tax bill. There's no interest to be declared on your tax return at the end of the calendar year if you choose to use a structured settlement in an injury case. There's no market risk. The payments that are set up are fixed and determinable, meaning if you set up a $1,000 a month payment for 40 years, you're going to get $1,000 a month for 40 years, whether or not the market goes through the roof or whether or not the market goes through the floor. So the payment is fixed and determinable. It's listed in the settlement agreement or qualified assignment, and that payment does not accelerate and cannot be changed. It's fixed, determinable, and has no market risk associated with it. The payments and the future payments you receive are creditor and judgment protected. No one can, call an insurance company and garnish your structured settlement payment. Your future payments are non-marital property. And as you continue to receive payments for the course of the time that you set up your periodic payment schedule, there's no ongoing fee or cost associated with those. Those payments can be sent check, ACH, however you want to receive those funds. There's no actual fee associated with getting those payments. They are, again, fixed and determinable, so there's no fee attached after that payment goes to you. I'm going to walk through just some commonly used types of structured settlement arrangements. And the most common way we see these, other than in minor cases, is for medical costs. The easiest way to show you this is if you are a workers' comp attorney, you are very familiar with how a Medicare set-aside is funded. So a Medicare set-aside allocation, even though it is not required in a liability case, it is more commonly used now on liability side. Essentially, a specialist will provide an allocation report that will show a amount of money that Medicare wants you to set aside for future costs that Medicare would cover when you settle a case. That lump sum can actually be reduced by using a structured settlement to create a seed amount and annual payment. So it allows the claimant to utilize present value calculations done through the interest rate and put less money essentially aside out of a settlement. So in a practical scenario, if an MSA is $100,000 in a lump sum, it may only cost $70,000 to provide the seed money and the annual payments. They will ultimately pay the $100,000 that's required in a lump sum, but they'll pay it over time, and it's a perfectly allowable way to reduce the amount of a settlement that has to be allocated towards that MSA on the front end. The same thing can happen on medical costs. A lot of times, your health insurance will cover certain things, but only a certain amount of times a year. So physical therapy, occupational therapy, other therapies, other stays in facilities post-hospital are typically limited to a number of days or a number of treatments. And if you are someone that has got a set amount of occupational therapy for one of your clients that you know is going to be ongoing, it's reasonable to figure out that actual cost on a monthly basis and use a structured settlement to pay for that. You can add cost of living adjustments on here. Typically, medical costs do go up. We call it medflation in our space. And you can add some cost of living adjustments to make sure that that client has the monthly funds that they need for that future ongoing care for medical costs. We do this with attendant care, with nursing care, nursing homes, a lot of the actual set things that a client is going to have moving forward that are not going to go away. A structured settlement is a good way to pay for those on an ongoing basis. In both of those scenarios, if there are a lot of future medicals, we'll utilize what's called a rated age, and it's almost the opposite of what we do in a life insurance plan. We will look at the life insurance or the life expectancy of a client and see if there's any sort of factors or things that we can add and reduce the mortality or increase the mortality chances for a client. I know it sounds morbid, but what we're trying to do is make the client look worse. And if we can do that, typically that will increase the rate of return a structured settlement pays to a client. The timing of payments is really important when you're planning on a settlement. And the first way that's really important for you is in minor planning. So most judges, when they do a minor approval, do not want a minor to get payments before their 18th birthday. Most expenses incurred by minors are still parental support items, so they don't want a client to have a legal settlement and offload some of the parental support onto this legal settlement. So a lot of times we can defer all of the legal settlement, the net legal settlement to the minor until they are 18 years old and have a payment stream that goes out, 10, 15 years to create some lump sums, maybe some college planning, different payments that will come to the client after their 18th birthday. Another important way to control the timing and reason to control the timing is because you can utilize this as a dollar cost averaging tool. So a lot of clients, especially clients that are netting between $100 to or more $1,000, are going to want to set up some sort of savings or investment account for some of their funds. Using a structured settlement to create a small monthly amount or large monthly amount based on the legal settlement can allow a client to take that monthly benefit and reinvest it into that investment account that they create. By doing this, what you're doing is really limiting your chances of putting all your money into the market on the wrong day. So any given day, the market's got a 50% chance of going up and a 50% chance of going down. So if you invest one day, the likelihood, you've got a 50% chance of having more money the next day or 50% chance of having less money the next day. So by dollar cost averaging, you're increasing those chances and diversifying the risk over a period of time, and you create some normalized investing practices for yourself. So, we've had clients that have set up a $500 monthly payment to themselves invested half of that every time it comes in. So they create an automatic $250 investment into their portfolio on a monthly basis. And for attorney fee deferrals, even though the structured settlement is not a tax-free tool for them, it is a tax-deferred tool. It has unlimited abilities to defer, meaning there are no caps on what somebody can defer as an attorney on a contingency fee basis. So you're not subject to the IRA rules, the 403 or 401k rules. You can contribute as much into an attorney fee structured settlement as you would like during a calendar year. That fee is tax deferred until the date it's taken. And the important thing for timing is it can be taken before the age of 59 and a half, which is a little bit different than most of our retirement accounts. And you can control when it comes out and hopefully lower your tax burden from that fee. So a fee that potentially would be received in November of 2018 can be separated into 5 tax years by taking some of it in 2018 and creating a 4-year structured settlement payment that sets up payments to come January, February of the following year, so that they always hit in different tax years for you. And you can utilize the structured settlement to create different guarantees and different types of inherent securities for yourself. The first guarantee that I always talk about is an annuity is the only product that we have in the investment world that will guarantee income to a injury victim or an annuity purchaser for the rest of their life. And what that means is that you can buy an annuity or buy a structured settlement and create a lifetime rider, a lifetime income rider, and put that on there. So in the structured settlement space, we're in mediations and you'll hear the terms, a life with 20-year guarantee or a life with 30-year guarantee. If you hear the term life, that typically means that there is a life guarantee to the plaintiff. So a plaintiff that buys a life in 20 can live for 100 years. And if they have purchased a lifetime payment, there's no way they can outlive that payment, regardless of how long they live. And essentially, the longer they live, the more interest they're going to make and accumulate. The number term associated with that in a life in 20 or a life in 30 is for the beneficiary of the annuity only. So clients with a life in 20 do not stop getting payments in year 21. They get payments for as long as they're alive. What does happen in year 21 is the guarantee is essentially over because they've earned past the guarantee period. If a client were to pass away with a life and 20-year guarantee, in year 10, their beneficiary would receive that lifetime payment for 10 more years only. It would not be a lifetime payment to the beneficiary. The second way to create some security for yourself is almost like, I have a life insurance plan for my family. It's backup security if I am not able to live as long as I think I am and save as much money as I think I can save that will create a nest egg for my family when we retire. This is a fallback plan for a client that wants to take the majority of their money as a lump sum. They can take 10, 15, 20, 25% of their net settlement and defer it through a structured settlement to create income for themselves 15, 20, or 25 years down the road. And what that does is allows them some security, some internal security, some feel-good security, that if they take that lump sum and what they are planning on doing doesn't work out, they have got a backup plan with some income guaranteed to them. It's almost like a pension plan when our parents worked in the automotive industry or for a state. They typically have a pension plan, and that pension would start on their 62nd or 65th birthday. So regardless of how their other retirement stuff did, they had a fallback or a pension plan that they knew that was going to come in and be fixed and guaranteed. Unfortunately, a lot of that stuff fell apart during the financial crisis, but a structured settlement actually creates an insurance product that would do the same type of things. It would not have any sort of market risk associated with it. So it allows the client to be more aggressive or invest in other things on the front end with the knowledge that they've got a fallback plan of a structured settlement that's going to start in year 15 or 20, however they set it up. Another way to really create some guarantees and put a real lock around a client settlement is to pair it with an irrevocable trust. So you can pair a settlement preservation trust, which is just a trust that has typical spendthrift provisions on it, a special needs trust, or other types of trusts that are irrevocable. When a structured settlement is assigned to those trusts, it creates an intermediary between the client and predatorial companies like J.G. Wentworth or Peachtree, who are out in the market space trying to buy their annuities from them. Those companies proactively seek structured settlement payment recipients call them and try to get them to take the present value of those, often at reduction rates between 11 and 30% of the present value. So it's not a good deal for clients, especially clients that aren't even looking to do it. This creates an intermediary for that client to say, look, my structured settlement is paid to a trustee. They are in charge of how those funds are invested once they get to them. If they think it's a good idea for me to sell a structured settlement, you can contact the trustee. I can assure you that 99.9% of the time, no trustee is going to sell a structured payment unless there's no other way to utilize funds inside the trust for what a client needs to accomplish. So it's a great way to really lock that client up and protect them from any predators out there in the space. Another really good use of a structured settlement is to cover fixed and determinable costs. Every individual and every family has fixed and determinable costs when they sit down and create their budget. Those costs could be your car payment, your car insurance, gas, your house payment or rent, utilities, gas, water, all the things associated with your needs on a monthly basis. Create a fixed and determinable budget that you need to allocate for on a monthly basis. The structured settlement can be utilized to create that payment stream to you. So if your budget is $2,500 a month and that's what you need every month to cover your payments, you can buy a structured settlement that buys that exact amount that comes to you on a monthly basis, and you can pay those fixed and determinable costs on a monthly basis, regardless of how your other investments are doing or what other income comes. It gives you the peace of mind of knowing that those costs are covered. So we sit down with clients and we have, a proprietary budget that we utilize that kind of creates what a client needs now, what a client needs on an ongoing basis, what a client wants now, and what a client wants on an ongoing basis. So it sort of separates needs and wants into what they need now, which is stuff that they need to take as a lump sum when they settle a case, what they need ongoing, which a lot of times is stuff that they can utilize a structured settlement for, and then the fluffer or the additional revenue can be set up any way they want. So if a client settles the case for $500,000 and they need $100,000 for things to upgrade their house or buy a new car, that is stuff that we'll allocate to the first year in terms of an allocation. If they need $450 a month, that may cost $200,000 from a structured settlement to buy it, and that would leave $200,000 their net settlement to put in other investment vehicles. And they can be more growth oriented when they do it in that fashion because they know their fixed costs are covered on a monthly basis, and they've done all the things up front that they need to do to get them into a better living situation. So it allows you to do your upfront stuff, cover your ongoing basis, and then invest with the difference. And that creates a more solid foundation for an investment plan. So it's important to understand how the structured settlement is done. And we talked about this a little bit at the front end, but in order to do a structured settlement, you've got to have a defendant that will cooperate with you. What happens from a practical standpoint is the defendant buys the structured settlement for your client. So it's part of the settlement agreement or release. They sign a qualified assignment. They cut a separate check to the insurance company that's going to be making the structured settlement payments. So they've got to participate in the structured settlement. Typically, there is a broker on the defendant side, and there is a broker on the plaintiff side. Both of those brokers work together to make sure that all of the T's are crossed and the I's are dotted in terms of what language is needed to keep all the protections we talked about on the front end. But you do have to have a defendant that will cooperate with you in order to get it done. The second thing that's really important to understand is that it's not for everybody. But I do think it's important for you to talk to all of your injury clients about it, because even though you or I may think it's something that they do not want to do, this is the only time that they can do it. So if a client settles a case today and you receive in your trust account or IOTA account the settlement proceeds, 2 months from now when you're ready to disperse to the client, they want to utilize a structured settlement, typically it's too late at that point and we can't go back in time to create a scenario where they can do it. So it's good to talk to them on the front end and make sure that they understand what it is and make a decision on whether or not they want to get more information on it. That is something that we will do at no cost to you or your client. So if you have a client and you know you have a settlement happening in the next few weeks, months, and you want the client just to understand the structured settlement and make a decision if they want that to be a part of the settlement process, we will meet with the family, meet with their advisors, and on a daily basis, we're talking to elder law attorneys, to CPAs, to parents, to other advisors, to financial planners that are working with families, just to make sure they understand this is one option that has to be done at the time of settlement and cannot be done later on. We understand it's not for every case, but it is something that's only available at the time of settlement. So I do think it's important just for everybody to realize that it's probably a good idea to talk about it with your client, whether or not you think it's a great tool for them, just so that they understand, hey, if I want more information on this, I need to do that now and not after the fact. And we do, there's a lot of cases where it just doesn't fit for a client. So maybe a client has expenses that they don't have enough money coming in to defer any money, or they are planning on doing stuff with the money in the first 1 or 2 years. A structured settlement is not a short-term investment vehicle. It is something that needs to be utilized for a longer term. And the longer, just like any investment, typically the longer that you put your funds into a structured settlement and have payments coming out to you, the better that overall return is going to be to the client. So the great benefits combined with the practical uses do make a structured settlement a real good pillar of a financial plan. It's a great foundation to start a plan with in terms of covering those fixed and determinable costs and making sure that a client has their needs covered without any risk associated with it. Like we talked about at the beginning, here's our service wheel. Synergy is helping clients from step 1 to step 6 on a daily basis. We've got experts in-house, from attorneys to certified financial planners to Medicare set-aside consultants that can walk you through the different things that your clients are going to consider on the cases. We know every fact of a case is specific to that case, and we want to help your clients and help you focus on what you do best, and that is resolving a case at the highest dollar amount for the client. And then we want to help protect that money when it comes in. We want to make sure that net settlement is as high as it can be to the client, and what they do with that net settlement is protected as well as it can be in the future. Feel free to call me at 877-242-0022. Again, it's Anthony Prito, and my extension is 103. So if you call in, I will give you a call back. And like we talked about at the beginning, our services are available on the planning side, what we talked about today, to your clients at no cost to do the initial consultation and walk through a plan. If they choose not to use us, there's no cost or bill associated back to the client. We just want to be out there and be a great resource for the client so that they can make informed decisions when they settle their cases. Thank you again for your time, and we look forward to earning your business.